All right, so we are going to do geometric probability. We'll remember it as, here's a few questions from maybe back in middle school, maybe even elementary school. It says, solve the following probability problems, write your answer as a fraction, as a decimal, and as a percent. So here we have one marble is drawn at random from a box containing 5 red marbles. And then we have 3 white marbles. And we have 4 blue marbles. Okay, what is the probability that the marble will be white? So we're looking for the probability that we get a white marble. So we write it as the probability of pulling a white marble would be equal to, well, there is a total of 3 white marbles. Okay, we have 3 white marbles in the bag. And then we have to divide it by the total. So our total is going to be 5 plus 3 plus 4. That's how many marbles we have in the bag total. So 5 plus 3 plus 4 is going to give us 12. So the probability to pull out a marble is 3 out of 12. But that is not in simplest form. So we can reduce that fraction. And 3 out of 12 reduces to, let me see, 3 over 12, 1/4. Okay, and then we rewrite that. That's one of the answers. They want us to write it as a fraction, which is what we did here. Now we're going to write it as a decimal. So when we write it as a decimal, that becomes as 0.25. So that would be our other answer. And then they also want it as a percent. So to get the percent, we can take 0.25 and multiply it by 100. Or we can go ahead and move the decimal place over 2 spots, and that gives us 25%. Okay, so those are the 3 different ways they want our answer. All right, let's look at the next one. It says a number from 1 to 11 is chosen at random. What is the probability of choosing an odd number? So I'm going to go ahead and write the numbers down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And so we want to know what's the probability of choosing an odd number. So I'm going to go ahead and these are the odd numbers. And so the probability of choosing an odd number, if we count them, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a total of 6 odd numbers out of a total of 11 numbers. Now this we cannot reduce. 6 out of 11 is as simple as we can get it. Now, if we write it as a decimal, that gives us 0.55. Okay, and if we write that as a percent, it's going to be 55%. That would be our last answer. Okay, so that's just a little review of how we find probability. Now we're going to use it in geometry. So geometric probability is a probability that involves geometric measures such as length or an area. So here it says the total number of degrees in a circle is 360. Use a spinner to find the probability of each event. So the first event that we're focusing on is we're looking for the pointer to land in section D. So if we look here, section D is a total of 60 degrees. Okay, so the probability of landing in section D is going to be 60 out of a total of one full circle is 360 degrees. Okay. They want us to leave the answer in simplest fraction. So 60 out of 360, we're going to go ahead and put that in our calculators and reduce that. And that gives us 1/6. All right, the next one says, what is the probability of our pointer landing in B or C? So here is B or C. Okay, that's both of them. So the probability of landing in B or C, that is going to make us add both of them together. So we're going to have to do 90 plus 30. and then divide it by 360. Now 90 plus 30 is 120, and 120 out of 360, if we reduce that, that gives us 1/3. So we have 1 out of 3 chances to land in B or C. Now the next section is the pointer landing in region A. So here's region A. Region A is 180 degrees. So the probability of landing in region A is equal to 180 out of 360. And if we reduce that, that gives us 1/2. All right, and then the last one. The last one says for the pointer to not land in region A, so it's going to be the rest of these. So it's going to be the 60 plus the 90 plus the 30, which gives us the probability of, this is a symbol for not, so not A. And that is going to be 180 out of 360, which is also 1/2. All right, the next section. So it says a point is randomly chosen on PS. So here's from P to S. Is this whole thing from here to here? We want to know what's the probability of landing anywhere on this line. So the total distance from here to here, if we add 8 plus 4 plus 6, is going to give us 18. Okay, so from there to there is 18 from P to S. It wants us to find the probability of each event. Write your answer as a fraction in simplest form. So once we get our fraction, we need to make sure we reduce the fraction. So the first one is asking what is the probability that we get a point that is on QR. So here is QR. From Q to R is 4. So the probability of landing on QR is 4 out of the total of 18. Okay, because the whole entire line, we had added that up with 18. Now we go ahead and reduce 4 over 18, and that gives us 2 over 9. All right, the next one. So now we're going to see the probability of landing on PQ. So here is from P to Q. From P to Q is 8. The probability of landing on P to Q is 8 out of the total, which the total probability is 18. Okay, the whole line is 18. We go ahead and take 8 over 18 and we reduce the fraction, and that gives us 4 over 9. All right, the next one is asking us for what is the probability of landing a point between R and S. So here's RS. RS is only 6 out of the 18 units. So, oops, RS, sorry. It's going to be 6 over 18. And if we reduce that, that is going to give us 1/3. Okay, now this next section is asking us what's the probability that we do not land on RS. So here is RS. So if we don't land on RS, that means that we're landing from P to R, okay? Which from P to R, if we do 8 plus 4, that gives us from here to here, is going to give us 12. Okay, so not on RS would be this other section, which is 12. So the probability of not RS is going to be 12 out of 18, which reduces to 2/3. The next section tells us what is the probability of not landing on QR. So here is section QR. So we're not looking for QR, we're looking for not on QR. So it'll be either from here to here or from here to here. Okay, so if we add those two together, 8 plus 6 gives us 14. So I'm just going to write it out here to the side. So the probability of not landing on QR would be 14 over 18. If we reduce that, that gives us 7 over 9. Now for the last section. So for this section, it says find the probability that a point chosen at random inside the rectangle is in each given shape. Write your answer as a decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth and as a percent. So now we're writing as a decimal and a percent. So in order for us to do this, we're going to have to find the area of each. So if I find the area first of the square, to find the area of the square, write it down here. The area of the square is base times height, which is 2 times 2, which gives us 4. Okay. And then our units here are centimeters squared. So that's the area of our square, centimeters, 4 centimeters squared. Now let's find the area of this triangle here. And so for the area of a triangle, we're going to use base times height divided by 2. Okay, our base of our triangle is 3. Our height of our triangle is 4. And we divide that by 2. So 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. So 6 centimeters squared. And then last, we're going to have to find the area of the entire rectangle. That would be our total area. So this whole thing. I want to make color all. Whole rectangle, including with the shapes inside. So I'm not going to take out the shapes inside. We're just finding the total area of the rectangle. We do base times height, which gives us 7 times 5, and that gives us 35 centimeters squared. Okay, so now that we found our areas, we're ready to find our probabilities. So here first, it wants us to find the probability of landing in the triangle. So if I take a point and I drop it in the probability of landing in the triangle, so I'm going to put the probability of landing in the triangle equals, so the area of the triangle is 6, and then the total space, the total rectangle is 35. So 6 out of 35, if we go ahead and try to we write it as a decimal, that gives us 0.17. Or they want it also as a percentage, it would be 17%. That would be our two answers. Okay. Now, the probability of landing in the square. So the probability of landing in the square is equal to, the square has an area of 4. The total area of the whole space is 35. So when we do 4 divided by 35 as a decimal, it's going to be 0.11. Okay, that's to the nearest hundredth, or as a percent would be 11%. Okay. The next one is a triangle or the square. So the probability of landing in the triangle or the square is when we add up both of them together. So the area of the square is 4 plus the area of the triangle is 6 divided by the total, which is 35. And so 4 plus 6 is 10, and 10 divided by 35 as a decimal is equal to 0.285, which would simplify to 0.29. And as a percent, it would be 29%. All right, the next one. It wants to know what is the probability of not landing in the triangle. So the probability of not in the triangle. So to get that answer, the triangle has an area of 6. So then not the triangle, we would have to do the total area, which is 35, and subtract the 6, and that would be not the triangle. And then we put it over the total area, which is 35. So this is a probability of not landing in the triangle. 35 minus 6 gives us 29, and 29 divided by 35 as a decimal is 0.83. So 0.83, or as a percent, would be 83%. Okay. The next one wants to know the probability of not landing in the square. So the probability of not landing in the square, we would go ahead and take the total area, which is 35, and subtract the area of the square. So the area of our square is 4, and then we divide it by the total area, which is 35. So 35 minus 4 gives us 31, and we go ahead and divide that by 35, and that gives us 0.89. Or as a percentage, it would be 89%. And then last, it wants to know what is the probability of not landing in the triangle or the square. So to find not the triangle and not the square, the probability, so not the triangle and not the square, equals, so we're going to take the total, which is 35, and we're going to subtract the triangle and the square. So minus 6 minus 4, and we divide it by the total, which is 35. And so if we take away 35 minus 10, that is going to give us 25 out of 35. They want it as a decimal, so that gives us 0.71. Or as a percentage, it would be 71%. That's it. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave it down in the comments, or you guys can go ahead and catch us during our office hours. Thank you. Bye.